General Aaron Blake arrived at the disaster site 18 hours after the attack with a human fleet that made HFY question everything he thought he knew about human military capabilities. Ships appeared through jump points with precision, timing that suggested they had been moving toward this location before the attack even began. The vessels were larger and more heavily armed than anything humans had shown during their diplomatic missions, and they moved with the coordinated efficiency of a military force that had been preparing for war. The general himself was unlike any human HFY had previously encountered. Where Captain Morrison and Admiral Sullivan spoke softly and moved with diplomatic grace, General Blake projected an aura of controlled violence that made every alien observer instinctively step back when he entered a room. His voice was quiet, but carried absolute authority, and his pale blue eyes seemed to catalog every detail around him as potential threats or assets, in some calculation only he understood. Dr. Karen Wright accompanied the general as part of a psychological assessment team, tasked with evaluating the survivors from New Dawn. The human doctor moved through the refugee areas with clinical detachment, documenting the emotional states of people who had lost everything in the pirate attack. Her reports described something she called purposeful dissociation, where trauma victims compartmentalize their grief to focus entirely on achieving specific goals related to their losses. Intelligence officer Zara Kim worked with teams of human specialists to extract every piece of information from the captured pirates and analyze the full scope of the Bruthen conspiracy. Her methods were efficient and thorough, and within hours she had assembled a complete picture of the plot that reached far beyond simple piracy into systematic planning for human enslavement and elimination as a potential rival species in Confederation space. The evidence Kim gathered painted a disturbing picture of Bruthen ambitions. The attack on New Dawn was intended as the first of several operations designed to capture human civilians while eliminating human military assets. Subsequent attacks would target human colonies and trade routes until the species was either destroyed or reduced to scattered survivors, suitable only for slave labor in Bruthen mining operations and industrial complexes. Tony Martinez worked with other survivors to provide information about the attack and assist in planning whatever response the human military was preparing. The man who had found his family's bodies among the wreckage showed no visible emotion, as he described in precise detail how the pirates had moved through the ship and which sections had taken the heaviest damage. His calm recitation of horrors made HFY more uncomfortable than screaming rage would have. General Blake convened a meeting with the surviving human commanders and alien observers to discuss the situation and outline the response that was being prepared. His presentation was delivered in the same quiet tone that HFY had come to associate with dangerous humans, but the content made it clear that something unprecedented was about to unfold in galactic space. The general began by reviewing the evidence of Bruthen involvement in planning and executing the attack on New Dawn. He showed detailed intelligence reports proving that Korth Belthak had provided the pirates with human tactical data and Bruthen military weapons specifically to maximize casualties among human civilians. The conspiracy included plans for additional attacks on human shipping and colonies designed to eliminate humanity as a viable interstellar species. Blake explained that humanity had entered galactic space with genuine desires for peaceful cooperation and cultural exchange with other species. Humans had followed Confederation protocols and respected alien laws and customs, even when those restrictions limited human activities and expansion. They had offered friendship to species that had responded with mockery and contempt, but had continued pursuing diplomatic solutions because humans believed that peaceful coexistence was possible. The attack on New Dawn had demonstrated that some species viewed human diplomatic behavior as weakness to be exploited, rather than strength to be respected. The Bruthens had interpreted human restraint and protocol adherence as evidence that humans lacked the ability or will to defend themselves against determined aggression. They had calculated that humans would accept losses and restrictions rather than risk conflict with more established galactic powers. General Blake's voice remained calm and professional as he described the fundamental error in Bruthen reasoning. He explained that human diplomacy was not based on weakness, but on choice, and that humans had deliberately restrained their capabilities to avoid frightening other species during first contact situations. The attack on civilian colonists had demonstrated that such restraint was not being reciprocated and had actually encouraged more aggressive behavior from potential enemies. The general announced that humanity would be implementing new policies designed to ensure that the galaxy understood human capabilities and the consequences of targeting human civilians. He described something called Operation Reckoning that would systematically eliminate the Bruthan conspiracy and serve as an object lesson for any other species considering similar actions against human interests. Zeph found himself granted permission to observe human preparations for this operation when he requested documentation access for his diplomatic reports. General Blake agreed to allow alien observation with a thin smile that made the Calorian scales prickle with unease. The general said that the galaxy should indeed see what happened when species mistook human kindness for human weakness and suggested that witnessing human capabilities would prevent future misunderstandings. The scale of human military preparation shocked every alien observer present. Ships and personnel appeared through jump points in numbers that suggested humans had been building a war fleet while maintaining public pretenses of peaceful exploration. Advanced weapons systems were installed on vessels that had appeared to be simple cargo haulers and research ships during previous diplomatic encounters. Colonel Sam Peters led special forces units that trained with equipment and techniques that made conventional military doctrine seem primitive by comparison. His soldiers moved with precision that reminded Zeph of mechanical devices rather than biological entities, and their weapons incorporated technologies that the aliens had never seen before. The colonel himself spoke about upcoming operations, with the same casual tone others might use to discuss routine maintenance schedules. Dr. Nina Clark worked with teams of human scientists to analyze captured alien technology and improve upon it with modifications that enhanced effectiveness beyond original specifications. Her approach to weapons development was methodical and creative in ways that suggested humans had been studying alien military capabilities for much longer than their short time in galactic space would indicate. Chief Warrant Officer Lucas Gray demonstrated human capabilities in electronic warfare and information systems that left alien observers wondering how much of their own communications security had been compromised during previous diplomatic contacts. His casual mention of accessing Bruthan military networks suggested that human intelligence gathering had been far more extensive than anyone had realized. The human survivors from New Dawn were integrated into operation planning with roles that utilized their knowledge of Bruthan psychology and tactical methods. These civilians who had lost everything in the pirate attack worked alongside military specialists with the same focused determination that characterized all human responses to the crisis. Their transformation from grieving refugees to active participants in revenge planning happened with a speed that disturbed every alien watching the process. Zeph observed human psychological adaptations that challenged everything Confederation science understood about trauma responses and emotional processing. The humans seemed capable of channeling grief and rage into focused determination without losing their sanity or operational effectiveness. They spoke about dead family members and friends with clinical detachment, while planning operations that would systematically destroy everyone responsible for their losses. General Blake's final briefing before operations began included information that fundamentally changed galactic understanding of human capabilities and intentions. He revealed that every human ship now carried weapon systems that had been concealed during diplomatic missions, and that every human world had been fortified with defensive installations that could resist attacks from any known alien military force. The general's closing statement was delivered in the same quiet voice he had used throughout the briefing, but the words carried implications that would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. He said that humans had learned valuable lessons about the true nature of galactic civilization and the price of maintaining peaceful relationships with aggressive species. Humanity would remember these lessons and ensure that future interactions with potential enemies would be conducted from positions of unquestionable strength. The operation was scheduled to begin within 72 hours, and General Blake invited all alien observers to accompany human forces so they could provide complete reports to their respective governments about human capabilities and methods. The human fleet moved through space with a precision that defied everything Zeph understood about military operations. Ships that had seemed like simple cargo vessels during diplomatic missions revealed weapon systems that outclassed anything in the Confederation arsenal. The vessels moved in perfect coordination without apparent communication, suggesting that human tactical doctrine relied on preparation and planning rather than reactive command structures that other species used. Colonel Sam Peters led the first phase of operations with surgical strikes against Bruthan military installations that demonstrated capabilities no alien observer had imagined humans possessed. His teams appeared inside heavily defended facilities without triggering security systems and neutralized resistance with efficiency that left enemy commanders alive but completely demoralized. The colonel's forces captured key Bruthan officers intact while systematically destroying their command and control infrastructure. SciFi watched from the bridge of a human command ship as Peters coordinated multiple simultaneous operations across different star systems. The human colonel managed dozens of separate missions with casual competence while maintaining real-time awareness of tactical developments that were occurring light years apart. His ability to process and respond to complex operational data exceeded what most alien species could achieve with advanced computer assistance. Dr. Nina Clark's weapon modifications proved devastatingly effective when human forces encountered Bruthan defensive systems. The human scientist had analyzed captured alien technology and enhanced it beyond original design parameters, creating hybrid systems that combined the best features of multiple species engineering approaches. Her modifications allowed human weapons to penetrate Bruthan shields and armor that had been considered impregnable by galactic military experts. Chief Warrant Officer Lucas Gray infiltrated Bruthan communication networks and turned their own defensive systems against them with techniques that made alien cyber warfare doctrines seem primitive by comparison. The human specialist gained access to enemy command structures and fed false information that caused Bruthan forces to attack their own allies, while reporting phantom human fleet movements that diverted defenders away from actual targets. The psychological warfare component of human operations proved even more devastating than their technological superiority. The humans broadcast footage of the New Dawn massacre throughout Bruthan space, while simultaneously demonstrating their ability to strike any target regardless of defensive preparations. The combination of evidence of Bruthan war crimes and proof of human military capabilities created panic among Bruthan civilian populations who had been told that humans were weak prey species. Supreme War Chief Gron Belthak watched his carefully planned conspiracy collapse within days as human forces systematically dismantled every aspect of Bruthan military power. His brother Korth died when human special forces captured the pirate coordination facility, where he had been directing operations against human shipping. The facility's destruction was broadcast live throughout the galaxy as an object lesson in the consequences of targeting human civilians. The efficiency of human intelligence gathering became apparent when they demonstrated detailed knowledge of Bruthan military capabilities and command structures that should have been impossible for a species new to galactic space. Human forces attacked specific targets with precision that indicated years of preparation and analysis rather than hasty response to recent events. The depth of human planning suggested that they had been preparing for potential conflicts since their first contact with alien species. Bruthan warrior culture began crumbling under the systematic demonstration of human superiority in every aspect of military operations. Soldiers who had been raised to believe that physical strength and aggressive tactics were the ultimate measures of military effectiveness found themselves outmaneuvered by humans who fought with calculated precision rather than brute force. The psychological impact of consistent defeats by supposedly inferior opponents broke Bruthan morale more effectively than direct military action. General Blake coordinated the overall campaign from his command ship while maintaining the same quiet demeanor that had characterized human leadership throughout the crisis. His operational directives were delivered in calm professional tones but resulted in the complete destruction of Bruthan military capability within weeks of operation commencement. The general's ability to manage complex multi-system operations while appearing completely relaxed impressed even veteran alien military observers. The speed of Bruthan collapse surprised everyone, including human commanders who had prepared for extended operations. Bruthan resistance crumbled so quickly that human forces found themselves capturing objectives ahead of schedule and dealing with mass surrenders from enemy units that had lost the will to fight. The warrior species that had dominated this region of space for centuries became refugees seeking protection from the humans they had planned to enslave. SciFi observed the final phase of operations when human forces located and destroyed the main Bruthan fleet that had participated in the New Dawn attack. The engagement lasted less than 3 hours and resulted in the complete elimination of every vessel that had been involved in the massacre of human civilians. The human commanders broadcast the final moments of enemy ships throughout Galactic space as proof that attacks on human civilians would be met with absolute and final justice. The treatment of captured Bruthan personnel demonstrated human understanding of psychological warfare principles that went far beyond simple military tactics. Prisoners were treated according to galactic conventions, but were required to witness the systematic destruction of their military forces and the collapse of their civilization. The psychological impact of watching their entire society fall apart while being unable to resist or retaliate broke many captured warriors more completely than physical torture could have achieved. Admiral Sullivan's fleet operations demonstrated human naval capabilities that exceeded anything previously seen in galactic space. Her ships moved with coordination that suggested hive mind control while maintaining individual tactical flexibility that allowed rapid adaptation to changing battlefield conditions. The Admiral's ability to command multiple fleet elements across vast distances simultaneously challenged basic assumptions about the limitations of biological command structures. Dr. Karen Wright's psychological profiles of human personnel revealed adaptations that disturbed alien observers who had assumed that trauma would reduce human operational effectiveness. Instead, the humans seemed to channel their grief and rage into enhanced focus and determination that improved their performance beyond normal parameters. The doctor's report suggested that humans could use emotional trauma as a source of strength rather than a limiting factor in stressful situations. The final assault on the Bruthan home system demonstrated the full scope of human military capabilities when their restraint was completely removed. Human forces bypassed conventional defensive strategies and struck directly at targets that would cause maximum psychological impact while minimizing actual casualties. The approach was more terrifying than simple destruction because it proved that humans could have eliminated the Bruthan species entirely, but chose to limit their response to military and political targets. Supreme War Chief Gron Belthak's final transmission was broadcast throughout galactic space as he surrendered his remaining forces to prevent further destruction of Bruthan civilians. His words acknowledged that humans possessed military capabilities that made resistance futile, and admitted that Bruthan planning had been based on fundamental misunderstandings of human nature and technological development. The warrior leader who had planned human enslavement died knowing that his species would survive only because humans chose to show mercy they did not deserve. The campaign that human military planners had designated Operation Reckoning concluded 6 weeks after it began with the complete surrender of all Bruthan military forces and the collapse of their interstellar government. The speed and thoroughness of human victory shocked every species in the Confederation and fundamentally altered galactic understanding of human capabilities and intentions. The quiet diplomatic species that had asked politely to join galactic civilization had proven capable of destroying established powers when their patience was finally exhausted. General Blake's final statement about the operation was delivered in the same calm tone he had used throughout the campaign, but carried implications that would influence galactic politics for generations. He explained that humans had demonstrated their preferred methods for resolving conflicts and hoped that other species would remember these lessons when considering future interactions with human interests. The general's quiet words carried the clear implication that humanity would no longer restrain their capabilities when dealing with species that chose to become enemies rather than friends. Zeph-Hi completed his observations, knowing that he had witnessed the emergence of a new galactic power that combined technological superiority with psychological insight and strategic thinking that exceeded anything previously seen in Confederation space. 6 months after the signing ceremony, Zeph-Hi found himself aboard the UNS Horizon again, as it escorted the massive colony ship UNS New Dawn through space toward the planet Terra Nova. The human vessel was enormous, even by galactic standards, carrying 50,000 human civilians who would establish humanity's first colony outside their home system. Families with children filled the corridors and observation decks as they watched the stars stream past during their journey to their new home. Admiral Kate Sullivan commanded the small fleet of human warships that surrounded New Dawn, like protective guardians. HFY had met the Admiral during the escort assignment briefing and found her similar to other human military officers he had observed. She spoke quietly and moved with confident precision, but always seemed ready to smile when discussing the colonists under her protection. She talked about the families aboard New Dawn like they were her own relatives and made it clear that their safety was her primary concern. Ben Tyler served as the colony administrator and spent most of his time planning the settlement that would soon rise on Terra Nova. He had brought his wife and 2 young children on the journey, and often could be found in the observation lounges pointing out stars and planets to the excited kids. His daughter Lucy was 7 years old and asked endless questions about space travel, while his son Mark was only 4, but already dreamed of becoming a starship pilot like the ones protecting their convoy. Chief Engineer Maria Santos managed the complex systems that kept New Dawn running smoothly during the long journey. She had designed many of the innovations that made human ships so efficient and reliable, despite their recent entry into space travel. Her engineering teams worked around the clock to maintain the vessel that carried so many hopes and dreams toward a new world where humans could build their own society among the stars. The convoy had been traveling for 3 weeks when HFY detected the first signs of trouble on his scanning equipment. The readings showed ships approaching from multiple directions at high speed, but the signatures matched known Saurian pirate vessels that operated in this region of space. Pirates were a common problem throughout the galaxy, and most species had learned to deal with their raids through either negotiation or superior firepower. Admiral Sullivan received the scanner reports and immediately ordered the convoy into defensive formation. The escort ships moved to surround New Dawn, while the colony ship began evasive maneuvers to avoid the approaching pirates. Sullivan's voice came over the communication system calm and professional as she informed all vessels to prepare for possible combat while maintaining protection of the civilian transport. HFY monitored the situation from his position on Horizon's bridge and noticed something that made his scales prickle with unease. The pirate ships were using weapons that showed energy signatures matching Bruthan military technology, rather than the crude equipment usually found on Saurian raiders. Their attack patterns also suggested detailed knowledge of human defensive procedures and ship capabilities that pirates should not have possessed. The attack began with devastating efficiency that shocked everyone watching. The pirates seemed to know exactly where to hit the human ships to cause maximum damage, while avoiding critical systems that might destroy valuable cargo. They targeted the escort vessels first with precision strikes that disabled weapons and engines without completely destroying the ships. The coordination required for such an attack suggested careful planning rather than the random violence typical of pirate raids. New Dawn took heavy damage when the pirates focused their assault on the massive colony ship. Explosions ripped through the civilian sections, killing hundreds of colonists in the first few minutes of the attack. Ben Tyler died trying to reach his family when a plasma blast tore through the administrative section where they had been waiting, in a supposedly safe area. His wife and children were found later among the wreckage that had once been their cabin. The pirates began boarding operations while the human escort ships struggled to respond to the coordinated assault. Saurian warriors swarmed through the damaged sections of New Dawn, capturing survivors and killing anyone who resisted. The reptilian species had no respect for civilian non-combatants and treated the human colonists like livestock to be processed and sold at slave markets throughout the outer systems. Captain Morrison received an encrypted transmission during the height of the battle that made his face go completely white as he read the decoded message. He showed the data to Commander Foster and Admiral Sullivan, and HFY watched as their expressions changed from concern to something much colder and more dangerous. The message contained intelligence reports proving that Bruthan military forces had hired the Saurian pirates and provided them with weapons and tactical information specifically to destroy the human colony mission. The betrayal went deeper than simple piracy according to the intelligence data. Korth Belthak and his brother, Supreme War Chief Gron Belthak, had planned this attack as the first step in a campaign to eliminate human expansion into Confederation space. They believed that humans would make valuable slaves due to their intelligence and adaptability, and wanted to capture as many as possible while eliminating those who might organize resistance. Admiral Sullivan's response to this revelation surprised HFY with its complete lack of emotion. Her voice remained steady and professional as she issued orders to all human vessels, but there was something in her tone that made the alien observer suddenly very nervous. She spoke about implementing Protocol 7 and authorizing unrestricted response parameters and informed all ship commanders that prisoners were no longer a priority consideration. The change in human behavior was immediate and terrifying. Ships that had been fighting defensively suddenly became aggressive hunters that pursued the pirates with single-minded determination. Human weapons that had seemed adequate for escort duty revealed hidden capabilities that tore through pirate shields like they were made of paper. The tactical coordination between human vessels reached levels that impressed even experienced military observers. Commander Foster's voice came over the communication system during the counterattack, and HFY barely recognized the human he had observed being polite to insulting Bruthan warriors 6 months earlier. The commander spoke in clipped professional tones as he directed human forces to specific targets, with instructions that left no room for mercy or negotiation. His orders were clear and precise and completely focused on eliminating every pirate vessel in the system. The battle lasted only 47 minutes after the humans changed their tactics. Every Saurian pirate ship was either destroyed or disabled, and their crews were taken prisoner for interrogation. The efficiency of the human response shocked HFY, who had expected the smaller escort force to be overwhelmed by the coordinated pirate attack. Instead, he watched the humans adapt and overcome superior numbers through tactics he had never seen before. Maria Santos worked with her engineering teams to save as many colonists as possible from the damaged sections of New Dawn. They managed to rescue over 30,000 survivors, but nearly 20,000 humans had died in the attack, including most of the children who had been in the forward observation sections when the pirates struck. The human engineer moved through the wreckage with mechanical precision, organizing rescue operations, while her face showed no expression at all. The interrogation of captured pirates revealed the full extent of the Bruthan conspiracy within hours of the battle's end. Feltar Quinn, the Saurian pirate leader, provided detailed information about his contacts with Korth Belthak and the promises of more human targets if this attack succeeded. The pirates had been told that humans were weak and would surrender quickly once their escort was eliminated, making for easy captures and valuable slaves. HFY found himself watching the human survivors from New Dawn as they processed the news of the betrayal. He expected to see grief and rage and demands for revenge, but instead saw something that chilled him more than any emotional outburst could have. The humans became quiet and focused in a way that reminded him of predators preparing for a hunt. They asked practical questions about enemy capabilities and discussed tactical options with calm professionalism that seemed completely divorced from the personal losses they had just suffered. Tony Martinez had lost his entire family in the attack, but spoke about revenge with the same tone he might use to discuss weather conditions. His wife and 3 children had died when pirates breached the family quarters, and he had found their bodies himself during the rescue operations. But when he talked about making the attackers pay for their crimes, his voice showed no emotion, at all just cold determination that made HFY's blood feel like ice water. Admiral Sullivan convened a meeting with all available human commanders and the alien observers as rescue operations continued. Her briefing about the situation was delivered in the same professional tone she had used throughout the crisis, but her words carried implications that made every non-human in the room suddenly very uncomfortable. HFY Morden pressed his scaled hands against the cold metal of the observation deck as he watched the human ship approach Kepler Station. The vessel moved with a grace that surprised him, sliding through space like it belonged there despite being so new to the stars. His yellow eyes tracked every detail of the craft called UN's Horizon, as it docked with the massive station that had served as a meeting place for 12 different species for over 300 years. The Calorian diplomat had seen many first contact situations in his long career, but something about the humans felt different. They had appeared in galactic space only 2 years ago with their crude but effective faster-than-light drives and immediately asked to join the Galactic Confederation. Most species took decades to even request membership after developing space travel, but these humans seemed eager to make friends with everyone they met. Captain Jack Morrison was the first human to step off their ship, and HFY studied him carefully. The human was tall by galactic standards, with brown hair that seemed to catch the station lights and blue eyes that moved constantly, as if taking in every detail around him. What struck Zephi most was how quietly the human moved, and how his hands stayed relaxed at his sides even though he was surrounded by alien species that could easily kill him. Dr. Lisa Grant followed the captain, and Zephi found her even more interesting. She carried what appeared to be art supplies and data tablets filled with human culture. When she spoke to the assembled diplomats, her voice was soft and musical, and she smiled at everyone, including the massive Bruthan warriors who towered over her small frame. She showed them images of human paintings and played recordings of human music that made several species stop their conversations to listen. Commander Ryan Foster came next, and Zephi noticed how this human moved differently than the others. His eyes scanned for threats and his posture suggested military training, but he spoke politely to everyone and never once reached for the weapons that Zephi suspected he carried. The commander seemed content to let his captain and the doctor handle all the talking while he watched and listened. The Bruthan delegation made their entrance with typical noise and bluster. Thane Vextar led 12 of his best warriors into the main assembly hall and immediately began commenting loudly about the humans. The Bruthan stood nearly 8 feet tall with thick gray skin and muscles that could crush most other species without effort. They had built their entire culture around warfare and conquest and viewed diplomacy as something weak species did when they could not fight. Thane Vextar looked at Captain Morrison and laughed. The sound echoed through the hall like rocks falling down a mountain. He spoke in the common galactic language but made sure everyone could hear him when he said that humans looked like children playing dress-up in adult clothes. He wondered aloud if human bones were made of the same soft material as their voices, and suggested that maybe humans would make good servants for real warriors. Zephi watched Captain Morrison's face during this speech and saw no anger or fear. The human captain simply nodded politely and said that every species had different strengths, and that humans hoped to contribute to galactic peace through cooperation and understanding. His voice never rose above a conversational tone, and his hands remained relaxed even as the Bruthan warriors moved closer and made more threatening comments. Dr. Grant stepped forward when Thane Vextar demanded to know what humans could possibly offer to a confederation of real civilizations. She began describing human art and literature and philosophy with such passion that even some of the Bruthan warriors stopped their posturing to listen. She talked about human music that could make people cry with joy and human stories that taught lessons about courage and sacrifice and love. She showed them human sculptures that captured movement in stone and human paintings that seemed to glow with inner light. The doctor's presentation continued for nearly an hour, and by the end, several species were asking questions about human culture and requesting copies of human art to study. The Saurian delegation seemed particularly interested in human poetry, while the insectoid Kresh wanted to understand human music theory. Even some of the younger Bruthan warriors appeared curious, though they tried to hide their interest when their war chief glared at them. Thane Vextar grew angry as he realized his warriors were being distracted by human culture. He stepped forward and pointed one massive finger at Dr. Grant and declared that pretty pictures and songs would not protect humans when real dangers came calling. He said that soft species always became prey for strong species and that humans would learn this lesson soon enough. Commander Foster moved slightly forward at this comment, and Zephi saw something flicker in the human's eyes. It was there and gone so quickly that he almost missed it. But for just a moment the commander's face had shown something cold and calculating. Then the expression vanished and Foster simply said that humans appreciated the Bruthan concern for their safety and hoped that all species could work together for mutual protection. The formal signing ceremony took place 3 hours later in the main council chamber. Representatives from all 12 member species gathered around the great table that had been carved from a single crystal found on a dead world in neutral space. Captain Morrison signed the documents that would make humanity the 13th member of the Galactic Confederation, with the same quiet dignity he had shown throughout the day. Zephi noticed that Dr. Grant had tears in her eyes as she watched her captain sign, and that Commander Foster stood perfectly still, with his hands clasped behind his back. The humans seemed genuinely moved by the ceremony, and grateful for the opportunity to join the galactic community. They spoke about sharing human knowledge and learning from other species and working together to build a better future for everyone. As the ceremony concluded and the various delegations began to mingle, HFY found himself standing near the human group. He listened as they discussed their plans for establishing trade relationships and cultural exchanges with other species. They talked about opening human worlds to alien visitors and sending human students to study at alien universities. Everything they said suggested a species that wanted nothing more than peaceful cooperation with their galactic neighbors. That evening, HFY sat in his quarters, writing his first official report on the humans. He described them as natural diplomats who preferred words to weapons and seemed genuinely committed to peaceful coexistence. He noted their obvious intelligence and creativity as demonstrated by their remarkable art and culture. He recommended that the Confederation welcome human participation and suggested that their diplomatic skills would be valuable in resolving conflicts between more aggressive species. But as he finished the report, HFY found himself thinking about that brief moment when Commander Foster's expression had changed. There had been something in the human's eyes that reminded him of the look predators got when they were deciding whether something was prey or threat. He almost added a note about this observation but decided it was probably just his imagination, and filed the report without additional comments. The humans appeared to be exactly what they claimed to be, a peaceful species looking for friends among the stars. 1 year after Operation Reckoning concluded, HFY sat in his quarters aboard Kepler Station, preparing his final report on humanity for the Galactic Confederation Council. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted when humans first arrived asking politely to join interstellar civilization. The species that had seemed like natural diplomats and peaceful explorers had become the most powerful military force in known space, and every other civilization was still trying to understand what that meant for the future. Ambassador Helen Foster now represented humanity in Confederation affairs, with the same soft voice and diplomatic courtesy that her brother Commander Ryan Foster had shown during the original first contact ceremonies. She spoke about peace and cooperation and mutual understanding with apparent sincerity, but her words carried the implicit backing of a military force that had proven capable of destroying established galactic powers. Other species listened to her suggestions with respectful attention that had nothing to do with diplomatic courtesy and everything to do with recent demonstrations of human capabilities. Admiral Jack Morrison commanded the expanded human fleet from his flagship as it patrolled shipping lanes and responded to requests for assistance from other species. The quiet captain who had signed humanity's membership documents had been promoted to overall fleet command, and his ships appeared wherever pirates or raiders threatened civilian traffic. Morrison's forces had eliminated every criminal organization in 3 sectors and established human military bases on strategic worlds throughout Confederation space. The Bruthan species still existed, but in a form that bore little resemblance to their former warrior culture. Elder Morthak led the remnants of his people as they worked to rebuild their civilization under human oversight and protection. The former Supreme War Chief's brother had died leading the conspiracy against human civilians, and Morthak himself had spent months in human custody learning about concepts like civilian protection and proportional response that had never been part of Bruthan military doctrine. The broken Bruthan leader served as a living reminder of what happened when someone mistook human diplomatic behavior for weakness or inability to respond to aggression. His people now worked as laborers and technicians in human colonies, not as slaves but as a defeated civilization that had forfeited their right to independence through their actions against human civilians. They were treated fairly but firmly, and everyone understood that their survival depended entirely on human mercy and continued good behavior. Counselor Thexhai reviewed HFY's reports with growing concern as he realized the implications of human transformation for Confederation politics and military balance. The Colorian leadership had initially dismissed humans as another minor species that would require protection from more aggressive neighbors, but now found themselves dealing with a power that could challenge the Confederation itself if humans decided that galactic law was insufficient to protect their interests. The Saurian pirates who had participated in the New Dawn massacre had been eliminated completely with methods that made other criminal organizations reconsider their willingness to target human shipping or civilians. The pirates' homeworlds now requested human protection from other threats after witnessing what happened to species that chose to become enemies rather than friends. No criminal organization in Confederation space would accept contracts against human targets regardless of payment offered. Human colonies expanded rapidly throughout previously dangerous regions as their military established security zones that made settlements safe for civilian populations. The fortified worlds that General Blake had mentioned during his briefings proved to be genuine defensive installations that could resist attacks from any known military force. Human engineering teams built these fortifications with efficiency that suggested they had been planning colonial defense strategies since their first contact with alien species. Dr. Karen Wright continued her studies of human psychological adaptations to trauma and stress, with results that challenged Confederation understanding of biological limitations. Her research showed that humans could channel negative emotions into enhanced performance and maintain operational effectiveness under conditions that would break most other species. The doctor's work suggested that human military capabilities would actually improve rather than degrade during extended conflicts. Tony Martinez served as administrator for the rebuilt Terra Nova colony, where survivors from New Dawn had finally established the settlement they had traveled so far to create. The man who had lost his family to pirate attack worked with quiet determination to build a community that honored the memory of those who had died, while ensuring that such tragedies would never happen again. His transformation from grieving survivor to colonial leader exemplified human ability to use personal loss as motivation for positive action. The memorial service for New Dawn victims took place on the anniversary of the attack, with ceremonies that demonstrated how humans honored their dead while preparing for future challenges. Admiral Morrison spoke about peace and hope for Galactic's civilization with the same gentle voice he had always used, but his words were delivered while surrounded by military escorts and defensive positions that made it clear humans would never again allow themselves to be caught unprepared for aggression. SciFi attended the memorial service and observed human behavior that confirmed his growing understanding of their psychological mechanisms. The humans mourned their losses with genuine grief, but channeled their emotions into determination to prevent similar tragedies rather than allowing trauma to limit their activities. They had learned from their experiences without being broken by them, and had emerged stronger and more capable than before the attack occurred. The diplomatic reception following the memorial service provided opportunities for SciFi to observe how other species now interacted with human representatives. The Bruthans who attended spoke with respectful deference that would have been impossible before their military defeat, while other warrior species maintained careful politeness that acknowledged human military superiority. No one made jokes about human weakness or suggested that humans needed protection from galactic dangers. Intelligence reports that reached Confederation leadership through various channels painted a disturbing picture of human technological development and military expansion that continued beyond what had been revealed during Operation Reckoning. Human research facilities were developing weapons and defensive systems that incorporated captured alien technology, enhanced beyond original specifications, while human industrial capacity supported military production on scales that exceeded most galactic powers. The human approach to galactic politics had evolved from requesting permission to participate in Confederation affairs to politely informing other species about decisions that had already been made regarding human interests and security requirements. Ambassador Foster delivered these communications with diplomatic courtesy, but made it clear that human patience with galactic bureaucracy and inefficient decision-making processes had been exhausted by recent experiences with betrayal and delayed responses to threats. SciFi's analysis of human transformation identified psychological and cultural mechanisms that explained their rapid adaptation to galactic realities. Humans possessed unusual capacity for learning from traumatic experiences and adjusting their behavior based on new information about environmental threats. Their diplomatic approach had been genuine, but was always contingent on reciprocal respect and peaceful intentions from other species. The Confederation Council received reports about human military capabilities that exceeded their worst projections about potential threats from member species. Human forces had demonstrated the ability to coordinate operations across multiple star systems, while maintaining real-time command and control that suggested technological advantages beyond what had been revealed during first contact situations. The depth of human preparation indicated that they had been planning for potential conflicts since joining galactic civilization. Elder Morthak's testimony to the Confederation Council provided insights into human military methods that challenged basic assumptions about biological limitations and technological constraints. The former Bruthan leader described human operations that combined psychological warfare with technological superiority and strategic planning that exceeded anything his species had encountered during centuries of galactic warfare. The Confederation intelligence assessment concluded that humanity had become the dominant military power in known space within 2 years of first contact, and that their capabilities continued expanding at rates that suggested they possessed technological and industrial resources far beyond what they had initially revealed. Human behavior indicated that their diplomatic phase had been a learning period, during which they gathered information about galactic threats while concealing their true capabilities until direct challenges to their security made revelation necessary. Zephy's final report contained a warning that would be remembered and quoted for generations throughout Confederation space.